Great.
All right. Yeah, just a second. My AirPods got broken, so I'm having my old school headphones today. But yeah, that's gonna be fine, I hope. All right. I'm just gonna start with my text. Hi there. This is Zinnia on Air, a live interview series with experts in wellness tech and yoga. My name is Anna. I am PR partner at Burba Ventures, and I will be hosting the session today. We're kickstarting the series with an amazing speaker. Leslie's career has been dedicated to world-class marketing and PR in industries as varied as mobile apps and devices, artificial intelligence, consumer technology, and social media. Leslie was leading communications at Mapbox, Mozilla, Nokia, and many other wonderful companies. In addition to her full-time roles, she has also been advising and angel investing in the San Francisco Bay Area, surfing, and teaching yoga as a hobby. A short note to the audience, today's session will last about 30 to 40 minutes, so feel free to send us some questions and comments. Leslie, I'm thrilled to be talking to you today.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Tell me more about your journey in yoga. How did you start, and when did you get your teacher certification?
Yeah, okay. Well, two great questions. I actually started practicing yoga very, very young. I first was introduced to it when I was a teenager, growing up in a town called Amherst in Massachusetts in the US. It's a college town, but it's kind of a hippie town. So there was a lot of yoga happening when I was a kid. And the first time I practiced yoga, they didn't even have rubber mats yet. You know, you use rugs and carpets and things like that. So it was very different. By the time I was in my 20s, I was doing yoga all the time as a part of my athletic routine because I was doing long distance cycling competitively. And then in my 30s, as my career really took off and I had less time for other things, I started practicing all the time. In fact, I was a bit addicted, but it was a great stress relief for me as I kind of took off in the early days of .com and the first boom of tech companies starting up with the internet. So it was a great relief for me. And that was really when I got the idea that I wanted to go further in my yoga journey by taking a teacher training. And at first I wasn't really sure if I actually wanted to teach, but I thought it was a good way to immerse myself and to learn more about the study of yoga, the practice of yoga, the history of yoga. And so I did that. And my first certification was with Baron Baptiste, who's a pretty famous yoga teacher in the US. He has quite a loyal following, and he was one of those early sort of, I guess if you want to call him a celebrity yoga teacher. And I really liked his style because it was a blend of classic vinyasa, sort of Ashtanga yoga, also with hot yoga. And so he did hot flow, and I really, really liked that. So that was the first one that I did. And then after that, I did a 200-hour teacher training with Larry Schultz, who was a student of Pattabhi Jois, one of the first people to really bring and popularize Ashtanga yoga to the United States. And that was a really great experience. And since then, I've done a few other yoga teacher trainings. So I've had about 500 hours at this point, but yeah, it's been amazing, an amazing part of my life.
How is yoga helping you in your daily life?
Well, that's a great question. It helps. I mean, it's become a part of my lifestyle. I guess that sounds maybe a little bit cliche, but it's really true that I've been doing it so long and it's become so important to my wellness routine, sort of mentally, physically, and spiritually, that I can't really imagine not having yoga in my daily life, whether it's pranayama or taking a few minutes to meditate or moving through a simple flow just to get warmed up in the morning or before I go surfing, or also as a part of unwinding after I surf, to make sure that I'm getting the flexibility in my joints after I do something really dynamic, like surfing for a few hours.
And how yoga has helped you to support you as a female executive throughout your career?
Oh, this one we can talk about for a while. So I mean, I think, not just an executive, but I think, any busy woman really needs to think about how to take care of themselves and how to nourish themselves. And for me, in the beginning, as I mentioned, yoga was sort of an adjunct to my athletic routine, but then I found that it helped me in other parts of my life. And especially as I became busier and busier, with my home life and balancing that with my job and also traveling, a lot of us used to, before coronavirus, we used to travel a lot for business. But, having that yoga practice really helped me to relax and to keep myself physically fit in a different way than just going to the gym, and it's hard for me really to even quantify how important it was, because it was just a step change difference in my life when I really started taking yoga seriously and incorporating all the different parts of yoga into my life, not just the breathing routine or the meditation part or going through a vinyasa flow, but also the principles of yoga and a lot of the concepts and the lifestyle, I guess, of living yoga, which is really being mindful and thinking about your actions and your behavior and how you treat yourself and other people in the world. I mean, there's just there's a lot that goes into it, the yoga philosophy, I guess, if you will, that's behind it. So it really helped me a lot to have balance and to try to keep balance, especially as I got busier and busier and maybe more stressed out.
That's what I'm really curious about. When you get busier and busier, you seem to have less time for your personal practice. So I'm really curious to learn from you. How did you find time, in your busy days for some time of yoga?
It wasn't always easy, but it sounds cliche again, but I made the time, and one thing that I learned to do, I guess everybody used to use Outlook. We're all on Google Calendars now, but in the old days when you had your desktop Outlook calendar, that was when I first learned how to block things in my calendar. I mean, I really made a point of it, even if I had to make a fake meeting, seriously, and if it was at the office, like when I was at Nokia, I'd be traveling around the world, but frequently I was dealing with a lot of different time zones, especially when I was living actually in Helsinki, and I was dealing a lot with the US and with London. So I would go into my calendar and I would just block it out and make it a private meeting so nobody could really see what I was doing. And maybe in the middle of the day, if I just felt like I really needed to have some time, because I typically worked a really long day, a 10 or 12-hour day with all the time zones. And I would block a half an hour to do some yoga, and I'd go downstairs to the Nokia gym and I would do half an hour of yoga. Or if I had a lot of night meetings that particular night or that week, I would block out an hour and I would do yoga either at a class or in my apartment. And I would just make the time. Like that was an appointment that I guess I made with myself, and the times that I would budge and I would cancel it, because somebody asked me to do a call, I would always be upset with myself afterwards, and I could feel the difference physically. So I really made a point out of making that appointment with myself and keeping it. And that's something that I recommend to everybody, And if you can't make it to a class, one thing I was going to say is, this is even before there was a lot of yoga classes online, like on YouTube or on an app, was that I invested in DVDs that I could bring with me. And back then, of course, we had CD-ROMs, on our laptops. Most people don't have that anymore. But I would have it with me, and I would pop it into my laptop if there was no other way for me to do yoga. And sometimes I needed that prompt, even though I was a certified yoga teacher. It's sometimes it's difficult to get yourself in that mental space where you can push yourself through a flow, and you just kind of want someone else to guide you. But that became really, really important to me, was making that time to do that for myself.
That's amazing. That's what you call dedication, finding the time every day.
But we always seem to be able to find time to go and have a beer with our coworkers after work, right? But you don't always feel like you find the time to go to the gym or to do yoga. And I think particularly, the women who travel a lot for business can relate to this. You can't always bring your gym kit with you. You can't always find a gym, some places that you travel to or some hotels. But in a hotel, you can always put a towel on the floor, and if nothing else, everyone, even a beginner, is going to remember some simple poses that you like, even if it's just to de-stress and to get some stress out of your body. You can remember how to do sun salutations, or, a sun A or a sun B, or just even a simple straddle stretch or a butterfly pose, so that you can get tension out of your hips if you've been flying or driving. So I really recommend learning the basics. And of course with Xenia, this is an obvious one, but Xenia takes you through some pretty simple and memorable flows. And, you've always got your phone with you, so you can set it up in a hotel room or even in a conference room in the office if you want to go into a conference room for a little while and unwind, and you can do your poses. So, 15 minutes here, half an hour there, it makes such a big difference in the day, I find.
Could you share some more of your tips of keeping up with your practice regularly? And maybe you could also suggest something for Zinnia users. How do you find this 5, 10, 15 minutes every day to do a little bit of yoga?
I mean, it's a good question. Again, I just recommend trying to book that time with yourself, making that commitment. And I think, a yoga app is a great thing, because a lot of times the yoga apps will have the reminders. If you dedicate yourself to a 7-day challenge or a 30-day challenge, it'll remind you every day. So you don't have to think about it, right? It's going to say, hey, it's time to do yoga, right? And so Xenia pings me every day. It's that kind of reminder and the dedication to say, yeah, if I don't do anything else, maybe I'll just do 10 minutes of it. Like if I can't do the whole 20-minute practice or can't do a whole half hour. But I recommend really making the time to do at least half an hour every single day if you can. It's the same as meditation, not to go off on a tangent, but meditation it's hard for all of us, right? Even longtime meditators. But if you say to yourself, I'm just going to do 5 minutes, and maybe it's just when you get up in the morning, you say, okay, I'm going to do my meditation and my yoga as soon as I wake up in the morning. And you do it before you brush your teeth or go make your coffee or go take your shower or go check your email. You have 5 minutes or 10 minutes to check Instagram. You've got that time to go do some yoga. And I know it's not as easy as opening up your phone and looking at, what your friends are doing on Instagram. But, I think it's probably more rewarding in the long term if you do that. So I think that's one of the great things about apps actually, is that they give you the reminder at the time that you set them, and you can just wake up and roll right into it. I mean, it's like brushing your teeth. I know that sounds, it sounds so easy to say that, but it does become a habit once you make it one.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I was about to say. I think it's coming back to what you said, it's really important to make this commitment with yourself and then to start small, not really having a long 1 hour practice, but maybe a short one every day, because 5 minutes, it's just 5 minutes. It's not an hour.
Absolutely. And, if you find, I think that when you do a flow on a regular basis, maybe a longer class, you're going to find certain poses that you don't really like doing so much, like all of us, and some that you really love doing. You go, oh, every time I do pigeon pose, I feel so much better afterwards. Or every time I do a forward fold, I feel so relaxed. And I think everyone has a handful of poses that they really love. And if that's what it is for you, is that, there's a few poses that you really love, then just do those when you first get up. Or just do those when you get home from work. I used to have to drive really, really far to my office in San Francisco. Sometimes if the traffic was bad, it would be an hour and a half. And when you get out of the car, you can feel it in your hips, in your legs, in your back, and your shoulders, right? You feel stressed out. I mean, it's the same if you take a long train ride. And I think for everybody, there's certain poses that help to get that stress out of your body at the end of the day. Vinyasa flow, everybody knows. Well, I should just back up. I shouldn't say everybody knows. Most people know that yoga was created as a sort of exercise or a physical way to get your body to a place where you could actually sit still to meditate. I think that's pretty well-known thing about yoga. And that's literally what it does. So if you take yourself through that flow, it will systematically, work the energy through your body so that you feel refreshed, but you also feel settled down and calm when you get to the end of the practice. You get to the floor poses and the relaxing poses and the shavasana, so that your body is ready to sit and to be calm and to be still. And your mind is also in that place. And I think for everybody, whether it's the beginning of your day and you need to warm up and do some sun salutes or whatever to get your body going, I think at the end of the day, a lot of people can benefit from a yoga practice that takes you through that flow, a more traditional flow, because it does what it's intended to do. It's 3,000 years of yoga history that went into that science of doing that. So, yeah.
I am really curious to find out tips from you, on how to get started with yoga and meditation. But before, I I would really like to ask you why, why should one try doing yoga and meditating?
Oh boy. Well, that's a good question. um, because it's good for you. I mean, I would never preach to anybody. I'm not preachy about that. I think that people who want to try yoga are, drawn to it because maybe they've heard something, or maybe they've met somebody who does yoga and they like how that the aura that person has, or that they seem calm, or maybe their best friend started doing yoga and they seem healthier or they seem happier. I think that's generally what draws people into it. Either that, or your doctor tells you you're too stressed out maybe and you need to do yoga. But I think most people are drawn into it, kind of like a moth to a flame. There's something about yoga, I think, that draws people in. And when you start doing it, again, like I would say, I'm not preachy about it. People are drawn to different styles of yoga. Certainly when I was younger, even though I tried a lot of different types of yoga, I was super excited about Bikram when I first started doing it. I mean, I could not get enough. 90 minutes of hot, sweaty, 100-degree plus yoga. I was there every single day without fail. And if I didn't do it, I was really upset. And I'm not going to say that was maybe the healthiest mental state, because maybe I was a little addicted to it. But there was a reason why, I mean, it was at the same time that my career was just incredibly busy. And I got really drawn into it. So, going back to your question, how do you get started? I think you look for the thing that attracts you, and then try different styles. Try, what your friend is doing. If that doesn't work for you, maybe try a few other different types of classes. I think that everybody finds teachers that resonate with them. Everybody finds a different style that works for their body and that works for, I don't know, their daily flow. Not everybody's going to want to do yoga the same time of the day. And so for me, it took trying a lot of different classes and a lot of different styles before I really found the thing that fit. And, I loved Bikram for a long time, but then after a while, I kind of went to a different place because I wanted to learn more about the history and the traditional style. And that was what drew me to Baron's classes, because they were hot, but they were also flow. And then that curiosity took me into the traditional Ashtanga style, and then so on and so on. So, I went on through my journey, and now maybe because I'm older, or also because I surf so much, I'm extremely drawn to yin. So I still like to do a traditional vinyasa flow, but I really love yin yoga because it's so restorative if you tend to do a lot of really like high intensity athletic exercises.
I have to try yin yoga. I still didn't find my way to it. I don't know why, but a lot of people talk so highly about it.
It's great. I mean, I would say one thing for beginners. So this is actually a better beginner answer, is that, in the beginning, a lot of people are really drawn to fast-paced classes. A lot of the fast-paced teachers are very, very popular. And although I love them, I don't necessarily recommend jumping into a really fast-paced class for a beginner, because the most important thing in the beginning is to learn how to do the poses properly and to have proper alignment, which is one of the things that's so great about Xenia for beginners, because it tells you whether or not you're doing it right. And that's not to scold anyone. It's there to keep you from hurting yourself, because it is actually possible to hurt yourself doing yoga. That does happen to people, especially when you overextend your joints and lock your joints out, and a lot of things like that. It's typically joints and tendons and ligaments that people hurt. Sorry, where was I going with that? I've lost my train of thought now.
While you were talking, I was really curious whether there is a difference of starting out with yoga and meditation in the Corona times and in the pre-Corona times, because, back in the days, you could just go to a bunch of studios, try different styles, get to know teachers, and now everything is online. So do you see any difference, in the teacher-student interaction these days?
There's a huge difference. I mean, there's so much opportunity now to take so many different types of classes. So like I was saying before about, beginners, it's really great for you to be able to go out and try a lot of different classes and see what works for you. Sorry, and now I remember what I was trying to get to circle back around to, is that yin is great because yin, you hold the poses longer. So, instead of a really fast class where you're just trying to keep up with making the shapes that the teacher is doing, or following along with your friend who's been doing yoga for 10 years, you hold the poses for a really long time. So in a class that's 60 minutes, 90 minutes, you may only do 12 or 13 poses, but you're going to hold them for 10 minutes. And that may seem like a really long time. It can feel like a really long time, but it's incredibly good for your body. It makes you not only strong, but it helps to lubricate your joints and your tendons, and that really helps to keep your body healthy. So that's really important. But back to your point about technology, I mean, not only are there a million classes on YouTube and Vimeo, and now on Instagram, but also having apps like Xenia and other yoga apps, it's so easy for people to learn and to have access, for not a lot of money or sometimes even free, to be able to try a lot of different styles and find a teacher that works for them and a style that resonates with them, and even, a voice that works for them. Because I know for me, not so much for yoga, but definitely for meditation, the voice means so much to whether or not I enjoy the experience, or I can even stick with it for 15 or 20 minutes if it's a guided meditation. So, it's a very individual thing. And I think that for anything to be long lasting, whether it's a sport or, whether it's a style of yoga, it's really important that it resonates with you, deep inside. You shouldn't feel pressured by other people to do something or to try a certain style or a teacher or a class. I think it's really, really important for people to find what works for them and what resonates with them.
I really like that, throughout the talk, we have a strategy for beginners on how to get things started. You should first dedicate a little time of the day to your practice. Then you should be practicing slow to get to know the poses better.
Absolutely.
And then just make this commitment to yourself to get a new and healthy habit.
Definitely. And also, trying different things, right? That I think it's good not to just go with peer pressure, but to try a lot of different styles and see what feels right to you. And also there's going to be poses that you don't like to do, and you don't have to force yourself to do them if they're really uncomfortable for you, whether it's because of a physical thing or it's just not your favorite pose. Like, I used to not like to do, the chair pose, because I thought it was really hard, but it also felt difficult for my knees because I'd hurt my knees doing sports. But now it's one of my favorites. So, I guess in the 30 odd years that I've been doing yoga, I've come full circle from not liking to do it to loving it. So now it's one of my favorites.
I had the same with chaturanga. I hated it so much, and then after a while, I started loving it deeply. And it's been a very interesting transformation for me.
It's, chaturanga is one of the master poses, of course, as you know, but it's also really, really good for your body. But it's important to make sure that you do it correctly and that your alignment is proper, because that's also one of the chief ways that people hurt themselves. And I'm actually willing to admit to everybody, so I'm not shy or proud about this. I hurt myself, and this is even after I was a trained teacher. I hurt myself doing chaturangas because I used to be maybe a little bit showy. I would go to these classes that were really, really fast and I loved it and I'd be jumping through the poses. But, a lot of times you'd be up and then you'd be back down in a chaturanga and we'd swing right through and whip into another pose. And I actually did a lot of damage to the insides of my shoulder circuits. So, I ended up tearing my supraspinatus, and that was from a surfing accident, but it had been worn down just from years of the shoulder joint being worn a little too hard by too many low chaturangas. So it's important when you go down into a chaturanga not to go down too low, because that's what I did, and that's what grinds your shoulder joints. So just a little tip there.
You've touched upon a very interesting question of injuries and pushing yourself too hard. So, I believe that for some people, yoga is a lot about the physical excellence, the headstands, the shoulder stands, some advanced asanas. And when you'd be pushing yourself too hard into those asanas, you might actually hurt yourself. So I would be really interested to hear some of your advice, about how to get into those asanas, but without hurting yourself.
Well, one of them is again to, make sure that you start with a good teacher. or that you've got Xenia watching you, you know, seriously, when you're doing those poses, because I would say just chaturanga as an example, you know, listening to a good prompt, you know, when you're over your wrists, when your chest is over your wrists and you go forward before you go down. So it's always important to move your chest, you know, 3 to 6 inches forward so that you're out over your hands before you lower yourself down. And a lot of people don't do that. They try to go down almost like they're doing a military style push-up. But that's when, if you know, rise up into an up dog like most people do, or a cobra, that's how you end up grinding your shoulder joint. And so it's just really little things like that, where even if you're in a really big class with a teacher, they may not be paying attention to you. So typically a yoga teacher will ask, is anyone here a beginner? And some people are too shy, they don't say yes, but the reason why they do that is because they want you to move to the front of the class so they can keep an eye on you. And it's exactly for that sort of reason, right? It's just like if you're going into warrior and your knee is not in a 90-degree angle, you know, you don't want your knee going out over your foot. You also don't want it going to the sides, right? And those are really common beginner mistakes that happen, but especially pushing your knee in can really damage your joint, rather than pushing the knee towards the pinky toe. And that's actually, it's a very subtle tweak, but you're not really pushing it out to the side. But I only mention those minor adjustments because it's really, really important to get that subtle nuances so you master a pose so that you can start to go into faster sequences and things like that. So it's important to have somebody watching you. It's really critical in the beginning.
And what do you think makes a yoga teacher a great yoga teacher? So let's imagine, you know, there's a beginner who's now trying out different online yoga classes, and what he or she should be looking for, you know, in a yoga teacher.
It's a great question. I mean, I think, again, that's a very personal thing. I love a lot of different teachers. I mean, I have 6 or 7 different favorite teachers. And they're all a part of my favorite, you know, group of teachers for different reasons. For example, I love Baron because he's got really, really great energy. And I just personally find him really inspirational. He's written a lot of books that help to make the practice of yoga really easily integrated into modern life. And that really, really helped me personally in my own yoga journey. I also really like Sean Korn, who's another yoga teacher that I find a lot of inspiration in, but she's very different. You know, she's a lot more feminine, and she talks a lot more about life and about social justice and a lot of other things that are, you know, on a different kind of part of the spectrum, I guess, you know, in yoga, and what the yoga lifestyle leads you to, I guess, is living a yogi life. So they're very different. And then I also always really like the Bikram, you know, classes. So, and those were much more serious, much more disciplined. I think more like Iyengar really was disciplined, and that probably wasn't my favorite, but Ashtanga I was really drawn to, which is also very, very serious. Which is not to say that all of those teachers are not serious, but some of them are more playful, I think, and down to earth and accessible than others, right? And I think everybody finds what's comfortable for them. And I guess that's what I would recommend, is just trying a lot of different classes to find what resonates with you.
I am very curious to talk to you, you know, about the wellness tech in general and the COVID pandemic, because there's definitely been a crazy shift in the world that has especially affected the wellness tech. So how do you see the pandemic impacting people and impacting the wellness tech industry?
Well, I think it's had an unintended positive impact on the wellness industry. I mean, I guess that's kind of obvious, right? Because people are working out at home now. So that's great. I mean, you know, we've seen a lot of innovations like the Pelotons and the mirrors of the world, which are very, very high-end, sophisticated types of technology. But you also hear that all the stores are selling out of yoga mats, and they're all selling out of home exercise equipment because everybody is home trying to stay fit. And it's just really good timing that, you know, apps like Xenia and other, you know, workout apps that use artificial intelligence, as well as just like a bevy of people who've put classes online through technologies like Zoom. It's just amazing that you're spoiled for choice. I mean, if you're not working out at home right now, I don't know what you're doing. Because, you know, I mean, yes, there's Netflix and there's Amazon and a lot of things that you can watch on television, or you can be glued to the news. But, you know, we all have enough time in our days now, because we're not commuting, that we can do a half an hour or an hour of exercise. And it's just a great opportunity to explore what's out there, you know. And I think especially because we all need to keep stress away and work on our buffering up our immune systems, that, you know, yoga is really like a great answer for that. And I think enhances anybody's physical fitness routine. So, you know, I'm just really glad that I hear more and more people are trying yoga. And I'm just really glad to hear that. I think it's such a good thing. It's so healthy.
And what do you think is particularly of use for people's well-being and mental health today?
Well, we've talked about that a little bit before. I mean, I think, you know, having the ability to release stress from your body, you know, by doing some breathing exercises, and by doing exercise, particularly doing yoga, because those time-tested exercises. And I also think that meditation, you know, quieting your mind and helping to release some of the anxiety, particularly caused by, you know, the uncertain things around the coronavirus. And also a lot of people have money worries and stress, you know, worrying about their job or their families. And so I think that's really important for people to have that in their lives. So yes, I mean, all of that's really important.
Do you believe there's going to be a lasting impact of the wellness tech industry on people's lives after the pandemic ends?
I hope so. I mean, I hope that, you know, now that people have found the time in their lives to do these things, and if they're enjoying them, that they keep it up, because it really is great to see so many people getting fit and doing these fitness routines at home and doing them with their kids. Or with their partners. So I really hope that people continue to do that. And, you know, it's just amazing that the artificial intelligence developments happen at the same time. I mean, it's just a really interesting coincidence, because as we were talking about with beginners before, you know, any type of exercise, you know, doing it unsupervised for the first time can be a little bit nerve-wracking. You're not really sure what you're doing. And being able to have, you know, artificial intelligence tracking your body movements, making sure that you don't hurt yourself, making sure that you're doing it properly, is really, really rewarding. And it gives you that positive reinforcement that you want to keep going and make sure that you're not hurting yourself. So I just think it's really exciting that those things came together at the same time, and then people actually had a little bit of extra time in their day that they could actually try these things. So I hope if anyone hasn't tried, they will try it. But if people are doing it now, that they try to keep that extra time in their schedules after they go back to a normal life. But nobody really knows when that's going to happen and what that's going to look like. I mean, I can say at least here, you know, in the United States, nobody is back to a normal life yet. That's for certain.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a new normal routine for all of us, and some of the things that we never expected, you know, to happen are happening in our everyday lives, and many things are changing so fastly that I believe having a healthy routine in your life or building up a new habit would definitely help to feel grounded in an uncertain world, and that is so important.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, and another great thing about home workouts is, you know, you don't have the fears that you're going to be exposing yourself to germs at the gym. So I certainly wouldn't want to discourage anyone from going to a yoga class with other people or from going to the gym. But knowing that you can do that at home, and that's something that you can do that will keep you safe. You're in your own home. You can, you know, not be anxiety ridden and constantly sanitizing your hands, you know, through your whole class. Because I know, you know, I'm sure the rules are going to change as the yoga studios start opening up, that people won't be as close together as they used to be. But a lot of the classes that I went to in San Francisco, you know, there would be 100 people in class, and it would be incredibly hot and steamy and sweaty in the room. And, you know, our mats would be, you know, 3 inches apart. So that, I don't know. I hope it's not a thing of the past completely, but I think that maybe, at least for a while, classes like that are not going to be happening. And it makes me a little bit sad because I think there's also a lot of joy and a lot of energy that you can get out of being a part of a really big yoga class like that when everybody's kind of in the same vibe. But it also right now has some obvious reasons why we wouldn't want to be doing that.
Yeah, I miss that a lot as well. But then at the same time, I remember going to my first Zoom yoga class with 150 people. And it was definitely a different experience. But at the same time, I was really missing that energy of a physical presence of a big crowd. And I know how amazing it feels. But then, it was there and it was really great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that feeling too. So it is really great to connect with people again. I hope that we're all going to be able to be in the same place together because, one thing you probably know about the Wanderlust yoga festivals. Yes. And, that's been a huge part of my social life for, almost 10 years now, I guess 10 years. It didn't happen this year, of course, but every year that was a part of my calendar, at least one festival. I would go to sometimes even 2 or 3. And it was amazing just because there would just be hundreds and hundreds of people and you'd be there with so many like-minded people, just enjoying so many different styles of yoga and talking about yoga and doing outdoor meditation classes. And it's just, I miss that. I miss that connection, but we'll all get back to it soon. And for now we can connect through Zoom. So that's amazing too.
Yeah, me too. I'm pretty optimistic about it. And one of the things I like about the, Zoom yoga classes, which makes it really fun, is that sometimes people are forgetting to mute their mics. And then you would suddenly have a lot of different noises in the room. And I don't know, this is just really funny for me. I like when that happens because it kind of takes you out of the flow for a moment and you just have.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And I love that people are coming in from all over the country or sometimes all over the world. That's really neat too.
Leslie, you've touched upon artificial intelligence, which is great because that's what I wanted to talk to you about. For the wellness tech, I believe this is a pretty new thing. And it would be interesting to hear your thoughts about the future of using AI for home exercise. What do you think about it?
I'm glad you asked me that. I love it. I think it's a great idea. And I only wish that it could have come when I was younger because I mentioned ruining my knees earlier. So when I was very young, when I was 18, when I was first in college, I would go to the gym and I would lift weights as a part of my training. And I would do squats with a barbell across my back. And nobody taught me about proper alignment with my knees. And, they would just throw us in the weight room and say, train, right? And so I would go in there and do that. And I did squats and I did them improperly. And it really, really damaged my knees. So over the years, I've done a lot of other sports, like snowboarding and cycling that had a lot of impact. But, you can't fix it once you've done the damage. And what AI does, which is so positive, is that, the AI trainer can watch you to do a move. You can have an app that will teach you how to properly do a warrior pose if it's yoga, or how to do a squat properly if you're doing weightlifting. And then it can track you and tell you if you're getting out of alignment. And that could save somebody's knees. It could save somebody from having achy joints like I have now. So, if it does that for one person, it's worth it. But, instead, I'm sure it's going to do it for millions of people. And that's really an amazing thing. And actually, having had a surfing accident last year in Australia, I went to a physical therapist, and the physio there gave me an app. It was a static app, but it had some exercises in it, and every day I would have to do the exercises and then hit the button to send a message to the physio that I had done my exercises for the day. And I had to do that for the 2 weeks that I was there. And I thought about that, you and I have talked about this before, is that I think it's amazing to think that AI could actually be tracking people now, showing them how, and then tracking to make sure that they're doing their physical therapy exercises properly. Because for people who are not used to doing calisthenics or not used to doing yoga, or maybe for an older person who's at home and they have an injury, being able to do those exercises with an app and to have it supervised and make sure that they're doing it properly could, make a real difference in somebody's rehabilitation from an injury or an accident. So I'm a big believer. I think it's fantastic.
You've mentioned two of the, I think, most wonderful use cases for AI in the home exercise market and in the wellness tech. But one of the things that I also believe could have a great potential is using AI and motion tracking as an enhancing technology for yoga teachers that practice with their students online. You could be tracking your students' progress, and sometimes in yoga, the progress is so little that you don't notice it. But with this technology, you could literally see your progress happening every time you practice.
Yes, 100%. And again, when a popular teacher has 100 students in a Zoom class online, there is no possible way that they can be watching what everybody's doing, And so I totally agree. I think that the AI being able to monitor everybody, and ping the teacher when somebody is way out of alignment, or ping the student, that's really, really important, because there are poses. I mean, some poses, it's difficult to hurt yourself, but there are definitely some poses where it's possible. And it may not seem like it at first, it could just be a repetitive thing if you're out of alignment. And for people who have, maybe if you have problems with your feet, if your feet point out or they roll in, like mine roll in. I actually have, bunions, and my feet have always rolled in. So that's one of the reasons that I have issues with my knees. And so I know about that. So I have to pay particular attention to it. But a yoga student just first starting out might not even realize that that's an issue. And you can't be doing your warrior pose and looking off, your drishti, you're looking off over your fingers, and also be looking at your knees at the same time. I mean, it's just too much for a beginner to keep track of. And so it's really important to have that technology and to have that be able to help a teacher if they're teaching an online class. And a replay too, if it's not a live class, if you've got a video, if the video has AI capability to be able to watch you every time you do the flow, it can also monitor your progress, which is just super exciting. I can't wait to see the things that people build. I mean, I guess that's what's exciting for me as a technologist, not just as a yogi, but as a technologist. I see this AI developing, and really think that developers are going to be able to build some amazing, amazing things with it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I believe that AI could actually help you while exercising, take a lot of unnecessary things out of your head, and then just do the practice, finish it, and then you could, use your app or the software program that is tracking your progress and just see how you did it, and then compare it, over the time. And that's pretty exciting.
Well, and, not to bore people with how AI is developed, but, AI basically, it's algorithms that train on a training set, and a training set could be anything, right? So you could train your AI to recognize problems too, not just people who are out of alignment, but say, a rolfer or a chiropractor or a physiotherapist can watch you walk across the room, and they can observe certain things about your gait or about the way you move your body that signals to them that your spine may be out of alignment, your hips might be out of alignment, or you might have some kind of an issue. And if you use that training data on the AI could watch you work out and also flag up problems that you may not even realize that you have. And then, that would signal you to go see a chiropractor or a rolfer or a physiotherapist or whoever that might be, or just to see your GP. But that could be really helpful too, because you can't watch yourself all the time, and not everybody is trained. Even in the gym, if you have a personal trainer, your personal trainer may not be trained to spot certain things about your gait or the way that you're holding your posture. So yeah, I mean, AI has the ability to diagnose all kinds of things that could really, really benefit people for their overall health and fitness.
Yeah, that's true. I would like to throw in some questions from Xenia users. We have some great ones, and we're coming to the end of the session. So I decided that I would just throw in 2 of them that I really, really like. What are the main advantages and disadvantages of practicing yoga with a real teacher versus using the app? What do you think about it?
Well, advantages of an app are going to be, you can do it whenever you want to do it, and you can stop and start it, and you can do it at home, right? So, and we talked also about just now during, coronavirus lockdown, people can do it safely, right? So that you're not going to encounter any problems. I think the benefit of having a live teacher is the rapport that you develop with that person and the connection that you have with the teacher as well as the other people in your class. There is, not to sound too, not everybody's spiritual that does yoga, but, I think that there is a certain feeling that you have in the room and a certain connection with other people when you practice yoga that gives you a good feeling when you're there and after you leave. And I don't know that you can really replicate that without being in the same room with other people. What they always say, that when you're a yoga teacher, one of the most important things you can do for your class is to hold the space for their practice, your students' practice. You're there to create the calmness and to hold the space so that people feel safe and they feel calm and they feel able to connect and to get into the practice. And so I think those are the two things, right? But then, that said, if you start getting into a regular yoga practice with your yoga app at home, you can create that atmosphere and that special time for yourself. Whether that means you shut the door and you put the kids in the other room, or, you light a candle, you do whatever you want to do, and do some deep breathing before you start your practice. You can create that sacred space in your own home and make that a special time for doing something nice for yourself. So I think it is possible to do that, but those are probably the two differences. You have to get to a class, and it's hard to tell your boss sometimes, if they want you to stay late at the office. You're like, but I was going to go to a yoga class. And they're like, well, I need you to stay late. So the app is always going to be there for you. That's one nice thing.
That is so true. The last question I want to ask you is about the wellness tech, because that's something, that we could also be talking about for hours. The industry is so interesting, and there are so many amazing things happening at the moment. But I'm really curious to hear, what do you think are the biggest challenges of the wellness tech at the moment?
The biggest challenges, gosh. I mean, there are so many great innovations, but, I think with artificial intelligence, I guess, the main thing is the training data again. So you have to decide what you want to train your AI on, and then you have to get a training set. And for some exercises, the training set may not exist. So you may have to go out and make that data or find that data or record that data somehow. So that would be one thing for being able to recognize certain poses and things like that. I think for other types of tech, the hurdle for most people is the cost. If everybody had the money to go out and buy really fancy high-end equipment, they would do it, right? But that's not really accessible for most people. And so I think, over time, cost will come down, and that will bring down the hurdle. But even, for simple things right now, even if you had an app that had, very fundamental, just home exercises and calisthenics, people can't even buy weights. If you go on Amazon right now, everybody's sold out of weights. You can't get them until like August, I think. And all of the stores, I'm here in Hawaii, but I'm on Oahu, so that's the island that has the most stores. And there's not a single weight in a single store anywhere on this island right now. So people can't even get equipment to work out with. So that's not really answering your question, but that is a challenge for the time that we're living in now, that's for sure. But yeah, I think it's just time and money. Those are always the axes, right? When you have new technologies, I guess that's backwards for our audience, but that's when you look at the diagram, it's up and to the right for the popularity and the adoption, but the cost goes down. So the line goes down for cost. And I think that's really the issue in the beginning. And when I say cost, I'm talking about technologies like Peloton or Mirror or something like that.
That's really great. You touched upon the price. And I think, one of the positive impacts of the pandemic was that a lot of apps opened up their content for free for a month or for a couple of months. And I believe that it was really great for many, many people who couldn't buy a subscription previously. They could have that experience, see if that works for them or not. And it's really good.
Absolutely. And then once you start doing something, you may realize, well, if it's $50, $60 for the whole year, maybe that's really not that much for my health. Because if you think about it, a lot of people pay $50 a month to go to the gym. And so, making that dedication to yourself and investing in the app is really investing in yourself. I mean, I know I did that too, because I have a lot of different apps, but I paid for a particular meditation app that I really ended up liking, because I was having a hard time sleeping. I think maybe a lot of us have during this lockdown. I'm watching the news a little more than I should. And so, for stress, I think, it's a gift to yourself, right? And I think, again, it's an investment that you make in yourself.
That is true. Leslie, it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, for sharing your experience. I am pretty sure this is going to be very helpful for people who are taking their first steps in yoga practice, who are trying to integrate their yoga practice with their professional life in any way. So thank you very much for your time. It was a big pleasure for me.
Pleasure for me too. Thank you. I hope I answered all your questions okay.
Yeah, you definitely did.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Wow, this was good.